Hi, everybody. I am very excited to be here with Greg Wheeler, who is a relationship, marriage, divorce, and life coach. He has a book called Single Dad's Essentials. And I would love, Greg, for you to give a little background about yourself and what you do.
Well, Jill, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you today. This is going to be fun and informative. So what I do is my background, I was a single dad. I was divorced 23 years ago, and I didn't have any family in the state of New Jersey, and my former partner had moved home to her home state in Missouri, which is 1,000 miles away. And so as the kids grew up, they turned 12, and basically we had a clause in our separation agreement that they all could make a decision once a year after they turned 12 where they wanted to live, which parent they wanted to live with. And so all three boys basically came back and stayed with me, and my daughter came back and stayed with me for a while. So here I was, single dad with no family in the state of New Jersey with 4 kids and working a 50 plus 60-hour a week job. New
Sounds
world.
impossible.
Exactly. Well, it was definitely the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life, but it's also the thing I'm most proud of. And so that's where the book came from. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I got to a point in my life where I just felt like I had learned so many things the hard way that I just wanted to go back and help people not have to learn it the hard way. Once you get the information and once you understand a lot of different things about networking, it takes a community, good communication, that you really need to work together. It makes things so much easier. And so I got passionate about wanting to share my experience with others. And also the fact that the world has changed so much in 20 years. There's so much new information about how to have a richer, deeper, more connected relationship, how to be in deeper communication, how to, you know, create the kind of love and the kind of connection and then the family and the adventure and the future that you want together. And so I'm excited about sharing that with people. So sometimes they don't have to go through divorce.
Right, exactly. And I thought it would be really good for these people to get a male's perspective because I really can't do that. And even though you help, men and women, it's you have a unique, to me, perspective because you're a male and you've been through all this. So I guess what's the most helpful tip you can give people just in general going through divorce?
So the most important tip is really, it's true for almost every relationship. It's about staying in curiosity and listening. In other words, developing a communication technique where the other person feels really heard. It's so important, especially if you're going through a divorce, because there could be hurt feelings, there could be assumptions, there could be anger, there could be vindictiveness, and that's not where you want to be communicating from.
Okay.
So when you're in that typically more difficult places, but it's also true all the time, we just kind of assume that we know where the other person's coming from, and we run off. And the particularly male perspective is the male says, okay, I know what you want, I'll go do it, or I'll go fix it, or I'll take care of it. Instead of staying in curiosity and playing back, here's what I've heard, here's what I think you want, do I got it right? And that can make all the difference in the world. And it goes both ways.
Yeah, I think when people are going through divorce, they think like they're not going to be having a relationship with this person, so that's not as important. I mean, how do you do that when you're going through a divorce and there's all this anger and resentment built up?
So that's why there's coaches, right? I mean, this is really what it's about. It's, you're going to have a relationship, especially if there's children, probably with your soon-to-be ex for the rest of your life. And there's going to be birthdays, holidays, marriages, college graduations, high school graduation. There's all these family events that you're both going to want to participate in. And you're both responsible for the situation you're in. Sometimes that takes some work for people to really get that. Normally I start with people and we say, well, what is your 3% that contributed to where you're at? And then it grows as they really understand that it's not really 3%, that they're just about as equal in terms of what the situation actually looks like. And so that then changes the perspective. It opens people up to being more in this together. We created it together, so we're going to get out of it together. And we want to do it, and that's where conscious uncoupling comes in. Conscious uncoupling is about separating in a way that creates the best way forward for everybody involved, for the children, if there are children, and then for each of you. Because you're going to have a whole nother life. You want to have a happily even after divorce. And so there's a lot of reasons to be motivated to develop these communication skills and to stay in communication when you're going through the divorce.
So you mentioned conscious uncoupling, and that's a training that you've been, trained to do. And can you just give a little bit of how that works?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. Careful, I might go on too much. I'm really passionate about this. So Catherine Woodward Thomas, she's the one who wrote the book called Conscious Uncoupling. And Gwyneth Paltrow was one of the movie stars that made it famous several years ago. And what it is, it's a process of just kind of like what we were talking about, becoming conscious of how we helped co-create the situation that we're in, but it goes even deeper. It opens up the door to a deeper understanding of how our personal life experience, typically the experiences between 0 and 7 or 8 years old, formed our personal perspectives and beliefs and how we look at the world, how we look at ourselves, what do we think about life. And so then we've been looking at life and acting with ourselves and acting with others from that perspective. And we don't even know it. So there's a part of this work that works in that space of you don't even know what you don't know about yourself. And there's magic that happens when you become conscious about what you didn't know about yourself.
Right.
So in that process of becoming conscious so that you can uncouple holistically and honestly and with the best intentions for yourself, for your kids, and for your former partner, we work through this together and we identify what those false beliefs are or those false limiting ideas that you've been living with. And then we face them, we embrace them, and we replace them. And when you replace them, there's this huge opening of freedom and possibilities and a new way of looking at yourself and others in life. And it's very empowering.
I love that. I mean, I don't think people think of divorce as looking at that. Do you know what I mean? They think about looking forward and what their new life is going to be, and then they replace their ex with someone new, and they do the whole same thing over again.
Yes, exactly. So that's, I'm also a certified calling in the One Coach, as well as the certified conscious uncoupling, both by Catherine Woodward Thomas. And it's kind of the same principle. If you're not going to change yourself, if you're not going to grow or change your beliefs, some people call it raising your vibration, becoming more conscious, more mindful. If you're not going to do the work to do that, then you're going to repeat the same pattern all over again. It's amazing how life does that. We're here to learn some lessons. And until we learn them, life is going to keep giving us the opportunity.
Right. But that is tough work, don't you think? Looking at yourself like that?
Well, it depends, right? So in the kind of work that I do, there's no shame or blame in it. It's information. It's like, oh, I made up a story when my mom left me at the supermarket because she was so busy and she had the 3 other kids and she was running late for an appointment. It wasn't that she didn't love me. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It wasn't that I'm invisible. It was just that she was so busy. And I made up this story. I made up one of those stories that I've kept with me, that I'm not good enough maybe, or that I'm not lovable. And so there's no right or wrong in that. It just happened. And you'll find that a lot of times when we do this work, that those stories have gifted us. Like in my particular case, I had a I'm not good enough story. And I've worked my butt off for years to be the best at things.
Right.
I took the hardest jobs. I got a master's degree in electrical and computer engineering. I've got 6 patents under my belt before I became a coach. So, so I love solving problems. And it was always about showing myself and others how good I really am.
Right.
So there was power in that. But then in a relationship, it showed up as my overgiving. It showed up as my not having confidence in myself and being needy. And so eventually that would break the relationship. So it's through doing this weird work that I was able to heal myself. And I'm not going to repeat those things ever again in a relationship.
Yeah, I think that is such a great example of what so many people go through. You know, so many people have that story, I'm not good enough. That, and it's because of all different reasons from 0 to 7. But yeah, you have to heal that and you have to develop that sense of yourself before you can move on. And I think divorce is an amazing opportunity to do that.
Yeah. So as a life coach, right? A lot of times people, if they're comfortable, they don't feel they have to grow or they don't have to feel they have to change. A lot of times it's not until adversity or a crisis comes along that we crack open, we break down, we crack open, and light gets in. And when the light gets in, we see things differently and we're willing to take on change.
Yeah.
People are naturally resistant to change. And so you're right. That may be the hardest part of doing the conscious uncoupling work, but it's not necessarily super emotionally different, but it can be emotionally relieving when the ahas go off and it's, oh my God, I can't believe I've been doing that all my life, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so, I mean, so much of what you're saying is so helpful. I think what I want to learn from you is from a male's perspective, what is hard about, what is the hardest thing about divorce? You know, what are some of the harder things from, if it's anything that you can say that's different from a male's perspective.
Okay. So there's a little bit of generalization that I'm going to do in terms of talking about this. It's
Right.
not true for everybody.
Right.
Um, but I will say that in general, our society, the world, and our parents have really taught men to not really tap in and be aware of their feelings. If when you're little, you fall down, you skin your knee, and you come up crying as a guy, your mom or your dad will say, oh, men don't cry. Big boys don't cry.
Be a
So
big boy.
exactly, be a big boy, you know. And so that gets over and over again from so many different directions. We get told more so than women. Women are usually a little bit more nurtured, a little bit more warmly coddled when their feelings get hurt or whatever. And women do a much better job of supporting each other and when their feelings come up. Men would rather talk about sports than they would how their feelings got hurt. It's kind of a taboo subject. So in relationships, start there before I get to divorce. It's really hard for men a lot of times to be in touch with and acknowledge their feelings. And they think they're doing a great job if they're just doing what they're supposed to be doing. If they're showing up and fixing things, if they're taking care of their responsibility, if they're bringing home the money and, you know, they're supportive of the vacation and supportive of good schools for the kids, they're feeling okay about it. And so maybe things aren't great in the relationship, or maybe they're not, you know, really rewarding or as happy as they had thought they would be, but that's just part of the job, you know, so they just keep on keeping on. They don't acknowledge it. And so that's actually the next part. When that shows up in divorce, most of the time men are blindsided by how serious the situation is. somewhere around 90% of all divorces are initiated by women. They reach a point where they're emotionally upset, distraught, unhappy enough, and they're in touch with their feelings enough to say, look, this is miserable. There's no point in doing this anymore. A lot of times it's not necessarily vindictive. Sometimes it comes out sideways. The man might be unhappy, the woman might be happy, somebody has an affair because they're not getting the love or getting the value or appreciate. It's the same thing. They're looking for something that they're not getting in their relationship because the relationship was broken. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that because as you're building up to divorce and as you're going through divorce, it's really hard to be honest about your emotions. What's really broken? What really hurts? Where were the original agreements and commitments not honored? What was my expectation? What was your expectation? You know, so much of it comes from a misunderstanding or a lack of communication. And then it just gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. And so then there's hard feelings, hurt feelings. And most of the time, you know, it's kind of funny. Again, I'm generalizing a little bit, but men, at least in my particular case, I was blindsided that it was so serious when it happened. And I wanted to fix it. I was ready to do all the work, you know, whatever it took. We went to couples counseling, we did all this other stuff, but it had already broken so far for her.
It was too late.
It was too late for her.
Right.
And that was because there was no communication before it got too late.
I cannot tell you how many times that happens. That is the story for so many situations that I've encountered.
Right. And so in the stereotypical case, a lot of it has to do with the roles and our behavioral patterns that we've been trained into growing up, in terms of men not being honest and showing their feelings and not standing up for their feelings and their needs in a relationship, and women not feeling comfortable enough or feeling it was their place to really share their feelings and say what they're unhappy about. A lot of times it shows up as criticism, as opposed to, look, we're in this together. Is there something we can do? I want help.
So,
and I'll tell you it's another secret. If a woman wants to connect with a man and wants to open up that door a little bit, it's about asking for help instead of criticizing and complaining.
right.
A man would love to feel that he could do something 9 times out of 10 if he's not so jaded. Sometimes the roles are reversed, but 9 times out of 10, if he's given the opportunity to help or to show, to do something, and I'd like to be in action, that he can contribute, then the asking for help is a great way to open that door.
That's so helpful. I had a question about your experience. Like, if you were to go back and do the right thing, you know, what would that look like on your part in your marriage?
Yeah. So on the time scale, are you talking before the divorce, during the
Before the divorce.
divorce?
No,
Okay, yeah.
before. Because you
Yeah,
said you
before.
didn't know, you know.
Right.
Right.
So before the divorce, I was pretty much in that stereotypical male role that we were just talking about, especially being stuck in my false belief of I'm not good enough.
Right.
So here I was trying to take care of everything, trying to make the money, working really hard to do all that. And we didn't really communicate very well. So I had a hard time expressing my true feelings. And I've always been an empath, so I'm pretty kind of better than most at this. But then again, she wasn't really good and didn't have a good role model for communication in the relationship. So there was a little bit, some passive aggressive stuff going on. And we were just not knowledgeable enough in terms of how to break that down. Now I feel that having much better communication and creating on a regular basis the joint vision going forward, and agreeing on what is our time, what is quality time for the two of us together and two of us separately, so that we could support the separate quality time, but most importantly, have an agenda where we regularly make quality time, whatever we defined it to be. For me, it would have been walks or conversations or snuggling in front of the movie, and just spending that time together. Um,
Bonding, connecting.
Bonding, right, right.
Yeah.
And then when we had 4 kids, it was incredibly difficult to do those things.
Right.
I was working 60 hours a week because we were a single income family, because she was staying home with 4 kids. And she was exhausted with 3 kids in diapers at one point. And so I would come home from work late, she'd be asleep, we didn't communicate. And then, we had our roles, and it slowly went downhill. It kind of went rapidly when the kids were a certain age, but it's not their fault.
Right.
It's our fault for not getting the help that we needed and or prioritizing we time.
Right.
So that would be my biggest lesson looking back.
So it sounds like if you would have been able to talk about your feelings to her and find out how she was feeling, things could have been fixed at an earlier time.
I absolutely believe that. Yeah. I mean, she's a good person.
Right.
She loves the children. She has a beautiful joy for wanting to enjoy life. There were a lot of things that we created besides 4 children that we really enjoyed, that were a joy for us. So it's not that she suddenly became a bad person when we went into divorce.
Right.
It's that we just couldn't have things that we shared anymore because the feelings were so hurt,
right,
and so much pain.
Right. No, that's very helpful, I think, for me and for a lot of people who don't understand, why didn't you fix it before if you wanted, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't know how to, basically.
Oh my gosh. That is literally why I've transitioned out of corporate America and wanted to be a coach. Because the learning, the tools, the information is now available in a way that it's never been available before. In 6, 8, 12 weeks, a couple can get an education and a reconnection and a rebuilding of their relationship in a way that they didn't even know was possible.
Right.
And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And you do that with?
I do, yeah. Yeah, I have what I call a Relationships 2.0 course that is 12 weeks, and it covers 18 what I call relevance, relational elements. It focuses on 18 distinct parts of a relationship. Part of them, the 6, are about yourself, then part of them are about relationships in general, and then 6 or 7 are about specifically how to have a really healthy, happy, rewarding relationship.
That's
like
great.
the how-tos.
Yep. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and
Sure.
just ask you about what tips do you give for getting into a relationship after divorce? Like, time. I understand the healing piece of that. You have to figure out yourself and what happened and kind of heal. But like, do you have any tips for people?
Well, I think that the biggest tip is what you just said, because it's not just about what happened, but it's about why it happened.
Right.
And then healing the original false story or the false belief so that you don't carry that and push that into your future in your next relationship.
Right.
That's the number one thing. The number 2 thing is to really be in touch with your feelings in a way that you're not like, it's not like falling off a horse and you want to get right back on again. Because many times we've lost a best friend, we've lost a big part of our dreams in our life, we've lost things that we're committed to in our life. So we have these big holes in our self-perspective, in our perspective of life. And the first thing we want to do is learn to love ourselves enough so that we can fill those holes ourselves. that we can find joy by ourselves. We're not dependent upon somebody else, because if you're dependent upon somebody else, you're going to go into a needy relationship. And then the needy relationship will eventually have a problem because you're not showing up fully as yourself, because you're giving to get, as opposed to just giving because you love someone.
Right.
So you want to make sure when you say the healing process, it's a little bit bigger than just getting over the pain or the emotional part of it. It's being able to take really good care of ourselves and feel happy about who we are and our life, so that we have a happy self and a happy life to share with somebody.
Right.
Because if you go into a relationship hurting or aching inside and expect somebody else to fill those holes, you're going to repeat a pattern. And it's not
Yeah.
going to work out very well.
I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but you know Harville Hendrix?
I do. Imago therapy. Yeah.
Yeah. And his work is all about the reasons why you choose your mate is to, you know, heal some wound from childhood, and you end up re-triggering the whole event if you haven't worked on all this stuff. So it's all aligned with what you're saying. And it's so interesting because all of it's done not consciously, you know, all of this stuff. And when you say conscious uncoupling, that's what you want to be. You want to be conscious about this, and you want to be having a new relationship for the right reasons, you know?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. So one of the ways that I look at this is and you know, I like a lot of what Harville Hendrix says. A lot of it he talks about is things that we loved about our mom or things that we loved about our dad, and we look for those in other people, or we look for the same behavioral patterns. A lot of it is behavioral based from Harville Hendrix's perspective. Yeah. Catherine's perspective is it's more about the story and the meaning we made of the events that we experienced. The I am or the I am not story that we created as a result of not being rewarded when we did good things, or always never getting a good grade, or being criticized or left alone, or these things, we create those stories. So it's a little bit deeper, a little bit different, a little bit broader, because the stories can come from anywhere. It can come from
a coach.
Sexual abuse. It could come from a beat up from a drunken father.
Right.
It can come, you know, so these stories, they can be healed. So yes, we definitely want to heal those things before you go forward, because otherwise you're going to look for somebody like your father who was mean to you. Right. And you know, or you know, a mother who didn't love you the right way. She didn't have time for you. It was always about her instead of about you. Right. And so that's the person you bring in your life, because you don't feel good enough, or you don't feel lovable, or you feel invisible.
Exactly.
There's a number of different ones. So that there's tremendous healing, opening potential for a new future, envisioning when those parts of the onion peel away.
Great. Any other advice or interesting information about anything that you wanted to share?
Yeah. So this is not just about me as a coach. This is about the whole idea of teachers and coaches or counselors in general. Those events that we have, those stories are like built-in eyeglasses. They're part of us. We don't even know we're wearing them. So everything we see here goes through that filter, and we interpret it a certain way based on our perspective and how we look at ourselves, how we look at others, and how we look at life. It can be very difficult to see that perspective by yourself. That's why there are these people out there. They help you to see what it is you're not seeing, to see what you don't even know you don't know about yourself. And so that's the greatest tip. Things are happening really rapidly in the world today. And So we've got so much going on. We have so much busyness and everything. And for us to really sit quiet and do it all on our own, it could take a very long time and it could be a very frustrating process. But if you get someone who's qualified, someone you connect with, someone you have a good rapport with, you feel safe, and you can do this work, it can quickly, efficiently. It's not necessarily like 2 or 3 years worth of therapy. This can happen in a couple of months, and you're different for the rest of your life going forward. So that's the biggest tip. Don't be afraid of it. It's okay to ask for help, especially if it's about something that you don't know about.
Right.
The second thing was, and this is passionate as a man to women. Women may not want to hear this, but men have these walls up from their childhood about not feeling their feelings. They really need help from a woman to feel safe enough, to feel secure enough, to feel seen enough that they can open up and share their feelings. It's best and easiest if it happens inside of a relationship. And inside of the Me Too movement and inside of emancipation and equal pay, equal rights, and all this kind of other stuff, I feel like there's this divide that's happening. Women are looking for men who are already in touch with themselves, already conscious, already mindful. And there's a lot of men that are being left in the lurch. And so part of this second tip is that women, there are a lot of amazing men out there who will do some great things if they only know what it is from a safe, loving place, what it is.
That's so great, Greg. I feel like you have just talked about something that is rarely talked about, and just the fact that, you know, when you're looking for a next relationship, or if you go back to your marriage, you do need to provide safety for each other, you know,
Yes.
and that's like so important in a relationship, because once you know, get triggered and you do these, you know, detaching and distancing or passive aggressiveness, it's like it's not safe anymore. So you really have to learn how to do that in,
Yes.
and so you don't have those types of relationships where people are you know, not happy. And
Right.
as a woman, taking that on and recognizing that it's not your responsibility, you know, but just knowing that that's a way to be in a relationship is really important, I think.
Yeah, I would love to take that just a step further, if I may.
Sure.
I would love to be able to work with people who are engaged to get married, so they get some of these tools in their toolbox. And I don't care if you're getting married, if you've been married, if you're divorced, or if you're recovering. There's going to be stuff that happens, even if you're co-parenting kids. There's going to be, life is going to throw you curveballs. You're going to get lemons and you're going to want to know how to make lemonade. And a lot of what we've been talking about so far in this discussion is these different perspectives, different techniques, and some insights in terms of how to do that, how to work together and not get so angry or realize that it's just a curveball. It's a wave that instead of having it crash over us, let's ride the wave.
Right. I love it. I think that's a great place to end, because that's riding the wave is what we all have to do in life. And once
Right.
we kind of accept that, we're golden, you know?
Yeah, it keeps us open. Yeah.
Well,
Thank
Greg,
you.
thank you so much. This was really, really beneficial to me and hopefully to a lot of other people. And I will put all your information with the video so people can contact you. And I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, me too. This has been wonderful. I really enjoyed the opportunity to share this. And I hope that it touches some people and helps some people in the right ways. So thank you so much, Jill.
Thank you.